So good morning. Am I audible? Hello. Okay, thank you, Krishna and Tinchi. So we have been discussing time complexity and space complexity, and these are the few algorithms which we have discussed. Uh, Let us just quickly review what is time complexity. First of all, time complexity is a measure of execution time of any algorithm, which might not be an accurate time. That means the time in seconds or milliseconds, but it is basically a time of unit, and that unit is computed by computing step count. So how do we count the step? First of all, you need to observe the algorithm and just traverse through each statement of that algorithm and find out what is the type of the statement. If that statement is comment or declaration, then step count is 0. If the statement is anything which is form of an assignment, A equal to B, A is greater than or equal to B, something which actually performs let's say you have a switch case and you are writing a break statement. So break is actually moving the control from that particular point to out of the loop. So or let's say you are using a for loop and you are using a continue statement. So all these are actually considered to be an assignment statement. So the step count for those type of statement is 1. Then you have a control part. So when you are analyzing the control part or when you are counting the steps for the control part, what is to be made sure is that how many times that loop is going to run. So that is the first step you need to observe. Second, depending on the type of the loop, whether it's a for loop or a while loop or a do while loop, we all know that loop always runs once more than the actual number of iteration, that is for false condition. So you have to observe that where is that conditional checking is being done. So for example, if it is being done on line number 2, then this particular statement will be executed n, that is the number of iteration, plus 1. So this is how anything inside that particular loop will be executed n times. So whatever is the step count of that particular statement has to be multiplied by n, where n is the number of iteration that loop is going to run. So this is the basics of counting the step. Once you finalize the step count for each statement, then you have to simply perform an addition. So finally what you will get is a kind of an equation which can be a constant function, which can be a linear function. Have you studied that linear and quadratic functions? What is linear functions? What is the general form of any linear function? Good, it's ax plus b, or it can be something like a quadratic function, which is ax square plus by, or something like that, where you have two variables, or you have a quadratic equation, so something like this. Or you can have cubic as well. So if you observe, this matrix multiplication is an algorithm where you have m into p into n. That is the order of n is 3. So it is something like x raised to 3. So it can be a linear function, it can be a quadratic equation, it can be a cubic function, or it can be any what you can say, a polynomial function. Now there is a very interesting property, and which you should understand while counting steps for any algorithm. So let us just try to understand that. If you see this particular algorithm largest, then what is this total time get or the total step count we have achieved is 3n. So that is a linear. And observe that there is one for loop. Then let us say this one, matrix addition. Okay. Matrix addition. The total time step count which we have get is 2 into mn plus m plus 1. Now mn means that it's basically a quadratic equation. It's like x square. M into n, there are two variables. So it's like if size of m and n are same, then you have x square plus x plus 1, something like that. So it means that this particular algorithm has the total time complexity, or the, sorry, I should not say time complexity, total step count for that algorithm is in form of quadratic equation. That's the one outcome. Now look at the, or observe this algorithm. There is a nested for loop. So you have a for loop inside another for loop. So when you have a single for loop, you have a linear equation. When you have a single nested for loop, you have a quadratic equation. Again, say this algorithm. There is one for loop and see the equation. It's 5n plus 1. So again, it's a linear. Now go back to this algorithm, matrix multiplication. See the equation. It's 2mpn. So it's basically a cubic equation. Now see the loop structure. You have 1 and 2 nested for loop. So you have a for inside a for inside a for. So basically this is a nested for loop to the third level or third degree. And that's why you are getting a cubic equation. So from this particular observation and understanding, it's very much clear now that the number of time or that step count is hugely depend on the iterative statement. If there is no iterative statement, then the step count will be a constant function. Okay. Unfortunately, there is no algorithm without any iterative statement. But if there is an algorithm without any iterative statement, then step count will be a constant function. If you have a one single for loop inside an algorithm, then the step count will be a linear function. If you have a nested for loop, then step count will be a quadratic function. If you have a double nested for loop, then step count will be a cubic function. So it all depends on how many times you are running. Now again, it is not necessary that because it's a 4 inside 4 or inside 4, that's why it is cubic. Even 4 inside while, and again you have do while, anything which repeats, anything which runs in iterations, that will actually consider as a loop. So when you have a loop inside a loop inside a loop, it's always going to be cubic equation. So whenever you are computing step count, in order to make sure that whatever count you are getting over here is accurate or correct, you can simply see this algorithm. By looking at the algorithm only, you will get an idea that what will be the kind of an equation for that particular algorithm. Is this clear? That was about how to count the steps, etc. Now, once you are ready with those step count, what is the next step to compute the time complexity? That we will discuss afterwards. But before that, let us quickly review. There are 3 types of cases where time complexity may changes. First case is a based case. Based case means an ideal case. Now, if you see this algorithm, it's a sequential search. Now, when you have a sequential search algorithm, then it means that you have an array of numbers. You have an array of numbers, and that array of numbers contains the key the element which you are finding at the first place. So when you have found the key at the first place, what will happen? It's a based case, because the element which you are looking for is found at the first place only. So that is a based case. Consider another algorithm. Let's say you are searching or sorting a numbers. You are sorting numbers using, let's say, any sorting technique, and you are getting already sorted numbers as an input. You want to sort the numbers like 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 in ascending order. But actually 2, 3, 4, 8 and 10 are already sorted. So that is based case. A based case is a kind of a case which gives you the based time, irrespective of what is the input. This cannot perform better than this time. That is what it means. Based case means that it gives you the minimum limit of something. Minimum, this is the time this algorithm will require, irrespective of what input you are giving to that algorithm. Are you getting my point? Why this kind of an analysis is important? This will give you an idea about the lower limit. It's like you require 5 seconds, minimum 5 seconds to execute this. I'm saying this just to get an understanding of what it means. Otherwise, the time complexity is not computed in form of seconds, remember. But this gives you a lower bound of the performance. So irrespective of input size, irrespective of the type of the input, this is the minimum time this algorithm will require. So that is what we mean by a based case. Second is the worst case analysis. Now it is just an inverse of what is based case. Imagine that again you are having the same algorithm, that is a sequential search. That means you are finding something inside an array. And it's a sequential search. It means that you will start from the first element and you will go till the last element to check whether that element exists or not. So now when you are doing this, worst case is a case where your element is actually found at the last position or element is not found. Because even if element is not found, then also you need to traverse through entire array also. Just consider that element is found, but it is at the last position. So that means you are searching, let's say 5 inside an array which contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then this is a worst case because the element which you are looking for is found at the end. Now why this is important? This is important because the worst case analysis will give you the upper bound, where you have a based case which gives you the lower bound, the lower limit. Worst case will give you the upper limit, and that is very helpful. And in fact, worst case analysis is the only analysis which usually we rely on most of the time, because we never consider the based case analysis. We always consider the worst case scenario, and that's why it is also philosophically important as well, because it has some kind of a psychological impact as well. Because what it means that if you accept that what is going to be worst, then whatever comes after, it's always going to be the better than what you have actually expected. So that's why it is already said, it's always said that try to imagine that what worst can happen, because after that whatever happens is always going to be better than what you have thought of. So the same philosophy applies over here. So why do we do worst case analysis? Just to make sure that what is the maximum time this algorithm will take, irrespective of what input we are giving. Remember, this is an asymptotic analysis we are moving into, and when we are moving into the asymptotic analysis, we are not doing mathematical analysis. Mathematical analysis will give you always the precise result. We are actually performing an asymptotic analysis. That means we are actually trying to make sure that based estimate we achieve. So for that, we consider that the worst case, what worst can happen. So that gives you the upper bound. Irrespective of your input size or type, this algorithm will never take any longer time than this. So if you consider the best case for linear search is 1 because element was found at the first position only. Then in case of worst case, complexity of sequential search is n because element, if it is there, it's always going to be at the nth position. It will not be there after n, obviously. You are not going to look after n. So that means the maximum time this algorithm will take is actually unit of n. So that is worst case analysis. I hope you understood this too, best case and worst case. Then there is a third analysis which is actually falls in between these two, and sometimes in some algorithms or some problem statement we also compute or trying to compute this average case analysis as well. It is just to make sure that whatever algorithm we are proposing for solving a problem statement, it will work better in the average case. But most of the time, average case analysis, as I told you, people always performs the worst case analysis. For any specific problem only, for specific requirement only, we try to compute average case, because technically average case is often roughly as bad as worst case only, because average means what? Means you can't compute. This is an estimates. So when you are performing an estimates of something, the input is not known to you. You know the best case, you know the worst case. But average case means what? Average can be anything between 1 to n. So that's very difficult to compute the average case. And that's why it's not like divide by 2 always. And that's why it is always roughly as bad as the worst case analysis. It gives you the information about the behavior of an algorithm on a specific or a random input. So let's say how we do the average case analysis for sequential search. We have seen that the sequential search best case analysis is 1, worst case analysis is n. Then how the average case analysis is being performed. Let's see how. Algorithm is sequential search. Probability of getting successful search is, let's say, p. Total number of elements inside the list is n. So the first match occurs of the element will occur at the ith location. I means any random number. That's why we consider it for our worst case. Hence, the probability of occurring the first match is p by n for every ith element. And what is the probability of unsuccessful search? Obviously, all probability total of all the cases always is 1. So that's why unsuccessful search probability is 1 minus p. And then you apply some kind of a function. So what is the average case? It's probability of successful search for element 1 to n in the list plus probability of unsuccessful search. So that's why it's consider value of I. So I will starts with 1. So 1 into p by n plus 2 into p by n plus I into p by n plus n and multiplied by 1 minus p. This is the probability of unsuccessful search, because it's always possible that element which we are trying to find is not there. So then you add these two. So this component is a probability of successful search and this component is probability of unsuccessful search. Then you solve this equation. Finally, what you will get is n plus 1 by 2. So it sounds like n by 2 only. So it's like an average case only. But in average, what we can observe that the algorithm always scans about the half elements when you are performing an average case analysis. It's always going to be difficult, and that's what I have written in the last statement. Computing average case time complexity is always difficult than computing worst case and best case time complexity, because you have to consider the lots of scenarios. Here again you are considering I. So I can be any value. So because it's a complex, that's why, see, here we are trying to simplify everything. The whole concept of asymptotic analysis is to simplify the process of analysis, and that's why most of the time we do one, a best case analysis, and second, a worst case analysis. We do average case analysis for very specific problems only, with very specific requirements only. So that's why in this syllabus as well, in the course as well, you will not find the calculation of average case analysis. Remember, you will always find, and we will always consider the calculation as per worst case analysis only. So I think this is about the introductory aspect of this course, and I hope you understood it. Basically, during this last 2 or 3 lecture, what we have discussed is what is the definition of an algorithm. So algorithm is basically a programmatically correct statements which takes some input, which produces some output, and which is aimed to solve a very specific computational problem. When you are saying that you are solving a problem, you always have multiple ways to do it. So the same problem can be solved using different ways, or different options are available. So that means you have a single problem, but you have a multiple algorithms available for the same. So when you have a multiple options, you are always going to choose, or you are always going to consider the optimum one, the best one. But then how do we compare the algorithms? Means you have let's say bubble sort and you have a selection sort. It's not like two values which we can directly compare. It's not like computing the string length. So you don't have any specific parameters or matrices which can say that algorithm A is better than algorithm B. So how do we compute the efficiency? For that, there are number of resources which algorithm may take use of. But normally we do consider only 2 resources, 2 prime resources. One is space and second is time. Space here means we are dealing with the memory, computer memory. And when we say a memory, we primarily believe in a primary memory only. We don't consider the hard disk and storage. Okay, our primary concern is the primary memory only, because ultimately the primary memory will be occupied while executing the algorithm. So that is the major constraints, and that's why space complexity, when we compute the space complexity, we only deal with the variables which it uses, not the actual data from which, let's say you have using a file. So you have related, let's say the algorithm is to compute the length of the string which is written in some file, text file. If that is your problem statement, then we don't consider the size of that text file for a space complexity calculation. We only consider the variables which are used to calculate the space, or sorry, to calculate the length of that file. I hope you understood the differences. If your size of file is 1 MB, let's say your text file is having 1,000 lines. So when you are counting the words in that 1,000 lines, let's say you are reading line by line, and then you are splitting, and then you are counting. So whatever variables which you are using, that will be considered as a space complexity, and not the actual content which you are loading from file to the program. So space complexity, when we compute the space complexity, we primarily deal with the main memory. Similarly, when we see a time complexity, we are actually interested in computational time that algorithm requires. You have these 2 parameters to compute now, but then you require a methodology. So when you are computing a space complexity, the method is to find out what are the variables, what is the type of the variables. If that variable is a scalar, then consider it as a 1. If the variable is a vector, then consider it as what will be the length of that vector, and then finally you add it together. If it's a recursive, then the calculation may differ. So based on the algorithm, you always calculate the space complexity but you have to look at the variables which that particular algorithm is making use of. Then you have a time complexity. For time complexity, again, there are two approaches. One is a mathematical approach, which gives you the prior estimates. That is called performance analysis, which is to be done before the actual algorithm is executed. Again, for that, you have two approaches, mathematical and asymptotic. Mathematical is more precise, but very complex to perform. Asymptotic is less accurate, but very easy to compute. So usually we do the asymptotic analysis, which we are going to discuss just after this particular chapter. So that was the performance analysis. Second is a performance measurement. That means once your algorithm is executed, now you analyze what, how it has performed. Usually we are not interested in performance measurement, because that's the another aspect of the analytics. What we are interested is in performance analysis. That means before actually executing the algorithm, we want to find out how much time it is going to take. So for that, you have an asymptotic analysis, but for performing an asymptotic analysis, you have to first step is counting the steps. So for counting a step, then again we have three type of equations. You have comments or declarations. Step count is 0. Any assignment statement, A is equal to B, A is equal to 5, A is equal to B plus C, A is less than B, A plus plus. Every this kind of a statement, break statement, continuous statement, all these are considering assignment statement, and step count is 1. And then there is a third type of statement, which is an iterative statement. To count the step for iterative statement, you need to find out or figure out how many times that loop is going to be executed. And then you can consider the nested as well. So this is all we have discussed. So finally, you will get an equation which will be either a constant function or a linear function or a quadratic function or a cubic function, or it can go beyond that as well. It can be any polynomial function. That function is again not a time complexity. Remember, you require one more step after this, and that will give you the actual time complexity of any algorithm. Now, when we do the time complexity analysis, we have three cases: best case, worst case, and average case. Best case means that your algorithm cannot perform better than this. So that is the minimum time algorithm required. Worst case means that your algorithm will not perform poorer than this. That gives you the upper bound. So that will give you the worst time it takes, and average means anything between these two. So that was about the introductory aspect. I hope you understood this. Any doubt till this point, we can discuss. Yes, anyone? Frequency analysis is same as counting the steps. Step count calculation, frequency analysis, all these are similar words or similar terms when it comes to the time complexity calculation. Right? Yes, any other question from anyone?
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, why performance measurement is given more importance in performance analysis? Sorry, sir. Yeah.
Reverse.
Yes, reverse.
The reason for that is, let's say you are sorting a million records. Performance measurement is what? When you are proposing any algorithm, you will not have a million records to actually measure the performance of that sorting algorithm. Million records comes after. Let me give you a very simple example. Google has launched Gmail, and you want to analyze how Gmail is going to perform once there is 1 billion users. If you have 1 billion users, then you can do performance measurement. You don't have 1 billion users actually ahead of your Gmail is being launched. So you want to perform, or you want to find out what will be the performance of Gmail when there are 1 billion users. So that means you are actually predicting the performance of any given algorithm. There is no point of, or there is no smartness required when you are actually doing the performance measurement. It's everything is in front of you. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. So performance measurement is used afterwards when the program is launched.
Exactly. Once your program is executed, at that time or after the execution, what you are doing, that is a measurement. Analysis means that you are doing it before actual execution. So you have not launched Twitter, but before launching the Twitter, you are actually trying to figure out that what will be the performance of Twitter once there are 3 billion users. It's very simple.
Yes, sir.
So, any other questions? Space complexity is the amount of space any algorithm will require while execution, or to execute any algorithm. See, there are two steps. One is an algorithm and second is a program. We used to confuse this, or we used to always mix these two together. It's two different things. Algorithm for bubble sort is different, and program for bubble sort is different. Program is language specific, program is platform specific, program has many other aspects to consider. When we compute the space complexity, we compute the total space unit it requires. Now, who is going to consume the unit? That is consumed by the variables that algorithm is making use of. So every algorithm will use some variables, and that is what to be calculated. What is the type of the variable? If it's a structure, let's say, I know again I will say that we are trying to put this together, we're trying to push, or we're trying to mix it together. But let's say your algorithm is making a use of something which is related to the structure. So again, that structure element requires some numbers. Let's say it has a structure is for your marks, and that marks contains a subject for, marks for 3 subjects. So basically there are 3 marks for subject 1, subject 2 and subject 3. So that means 1 unit of your result requires actually the 3 storage unit to store the marks for each subject. So this is how you need to observe that what will be the exact space that particular algorithm is going to, that particular variable is going to take. So you need to find out whether it's a scalar or vector. Then finally you add all this together. That gives you the measure which is called a space complexity, which is some kind of an equation again, because it's an input specific. So again, it will be kind of an equation which has some fixed part, some variable part. Variable part depends on the input, fixed part is fixed. So again, it will be a kind of a linear equation, ax plus b or something like that. So that is space complexity. Any other question? So fine, I think I should continue with the next topic if you are clear about all this. So let me share the screen. Okay. So the next topic which I think I am going to discuss is asymptotic functions. Now we have discussed the step count, or let's say frequency analysis. We have already discussed how to do the frequencies analysis or how to compute the steps. That particular step of computing the step count will give us some equation, some form of equation, ax square plus bx plus c or something like this. So that means if you have two algorithms, algorithm A and algorithm B, you will have this kind of an equation for both of this. So if we are presented with the number of algorithms, obviously we want to choose the best of it, which one is the most efficient one, but then how to find the best? So we should be able to compare two algorithms by some means. So how to compute that particular thing we have discussed, that we have a step count for it or we have frequency analysis for it. But again, you can't simply compare two equations, ax square plus bx plus c or dx square plus ey plus d. I know that both are linear equation, sorry, quadratic equation, but you don't know the values of a and b. Excuse me, yes. પેલો છે મેસેજ કરું. So sorry for disturbing. Okay, we have been discussing the how to compare the algorithms, how to compare two algorithms, and because we have an equation, but again based on the equation we can't simply say that algorithm A is better than algorithm B. We need to have some mechanism, some methodology that will be able to say that this is better than this. So that mechanism is actually called asymptotic analysis. So what it indicates, it basically indicates the computational efficiency. When we are performing this type of asymptotic calculation, then what is the input? Input is this equation, right? So we have some kind of equation, an square plus bn plus c. Now when you look at this equation, what do you think, which one is the largest part in this equation? An square plus bn plus c. There are three components, right? So which component is, according to you, will be having the largest impact on the final outcome? Any guesses?
An square.
An square, obviously, right? So when we are actually trying to figure out what is the, see, remember basically we have two equations, T1 and T2. T1 is something, T2 is something. We want to find out which one is the larger one or which one is the smaller one. Basically we want to find out what is the relationship between T1 and T2. But unlike two values, T1 is 5 and T2 is 10, we can always say that 5 is less than 10. Here we have, instead of 5 and 10, here we have two equations. One is an square plus bn plus c, and second is, let's say, cn plus d. So when you have this kind of a scenario, then you require order of growth, which will actually give you the simplified version of that equation. And by looking at or by computing that simplified version, we can always get an idea that what is the larger one, whether it's a T1 or T2. That is the overall scenario, or that is the overview of what the order of growth means. Order of growth means that it gives you the simplified abstraction of any given equation. If the equation is Tn an square plus bn plus c, then order of growth will give you an idea about the simplified version of this, right? Because then there are mechanism to do it, and what is that mechanism we'll discuss probably in the next class. But I hope you understood this, that now we are trying to compare the outcome of step count, which we have discussed already, of two algorithms, and trying to figure out which one is better than the other one. And for that, we can't compare these two equations. We need a simplified version. We need an abstract version, which easily gives us an idea about who or which one is the larger and which one is the smaller. Because ultimately, we want to select the optimum one. That means the smallest, or the algorithm with the smallest or the minimum time complexity. So I hope you understood this, the overview of what is order of growth. It's basically, if you see the word itself, order of growth. Function is basically a variable. The outcome of that function is actually a variable, because if the result depends on what the value you are going to give to n. So if your n increases, then what is the impact on that result? Because ultimately you want to compute, or you want to get an idea about the impact of overall impact of that particular equation. It will be more clear in the subsequent classes. I think I will stop here. Anything which you want to ask with respect to this one? Stopping the recording. Yes, anyone?